They say your fated mate is supposed to save you. Mine sentenced me to death instead. I'm on my knees in the royal Lycan Court when King Alaric Vane, my mate, looks at me like I'm something rotting he scraped off his boot. The mate bond screams between us, a searing thread of gold that only I can feel burning through my chest, wrapping around my heart, demanding recognition. He feels nothing, or worse, he feels it and doesn't care. Wolfless, broken, unfit to live. His voice is ice. His golden eyes are colder still, like winter sun on frozen lakes, beautiful and deadly. They don't know the truth. None of them do. For 19 years, I've been called the Lycan King's mistake, chained in darkness so deep I forgot what sunlight felt like, starved until my ribs showed through paper-thin skin, studied like a failed experiment in some mad healer's laboratory, an omega without a shift, a genetic defect, a cautionary tale whispered to pups about what happens when bloodlines go wrong. But the scars on my wrists? They're not from chains. They're from a seal. Ancient magic, bloodwork so old it predates the kingdoms themselves. One that's kept something monstrous and silver locked inside my bones since the day I was born. Something they thought was extinct. Something they feared. You will be cast beyond the wall, Alaric declares, and his voice echoes through the massive hall. The bond between us doesn't just crack, it shatters. Every fragment is a blade, cutting, tearing, destroying something sacred that was supposed to be unbreakable. The betrayal is a knife between my ribs, twisting with each breath. And that's when I feel it. Crack. The seal splinters like glass struck by a hammer. The wolfsbane scars on my shoulders, marks I've carried since childhood. Wounds that never fully healed start bleeding black. Not red. Black as ink, black as death. Black as the void between stars. My body convulses, chains rattling, and the sound that rips from my throat isn't human. It's the roar of something they thought was legend. It's the sound of fury that's been caged for 19 years finally breaking free. The Silver Wolf is waking up, and she's furious. Welcome back if you crave fated mates, redemptive obsession, and a love fierce enough to burn down empires. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, because this story is only beginning. I was 7 the first time they chained me. Most wolf pups shift for the first time around 6, clumsy, stumbling little things with oversized paws and uncertain howls that make their parents laugh with pride. It's a rite of passage, a moment of joy. But my 8th birthday came and went in silence. Then my 9th, marked only by whispers. By the time I turned 10, whispers had become accusations, and accusations had become fear. Cursed, broken, abomination. The words followed me everywhere, hissed behind hands, spat like venom. Alpha Tauren of the Shadow Moon Pack decided I was a disease that needed quarantine. For the safety of the pack, he'd announced, his voice booming through the meeting hall while I stood there, a small child drowning in adult hatred. Until we understand what she is. The dungeon was cold, damp stone that wept moisture down the walls in endless tears. The air tasted of mold and despair. The chains were iron, specially forged and blessed with wolfsbane, so even if I had a wolf, she couldn't break free. They burned, every single day, every single breath. The metal ate into my wrists and ankles until the skin there turned to permanent scar tissue, white and dead and numb. But the worst part wasn't the pain, it was the silence. Inside every Lycan is a wolf, a second soul, a fierce presence that growls and paces and speaks to you. It's like having a best friend living in your head, a companion who's with you from your first shift until your last breath. Other prisoners in the dungeon cells above me, I could hear their wolves. On full moons, they could shift despite the chains, howl their rage at the silver disk in the sky, feel the beast moving beneath their skin like a second heartbeat. I felt nothing, just a hollow space where something should be, an aching absence that grew with each passing year, like a phantom limb that never stops hurting. The pack took it as proof of my defect, evidence that I was something wrong, something that shouldn't exist. They examined me like livestock at market. Healers poked and prodded with cold instruments, drew blood until I was dizzy, whispered theories in corners where they thought I couldn't hear. Was it genetic? A mutation that could spread through bloodlines like disease? Could touching me contaminate others? Should I be terminated before I infected the pack's purity? Alpha Tauren's mate, Luna Morven, wanted me executed. Better safe than sorry, she'd hissed during one visit to my cell, her perfectly manicured nails drumming on the iron bars. Her perfume, expensive roses, couldn't quite mask the scent of her disgust. Who knows what she might become? What if she's carrying something that could spread? But Torin was a political creature, always calculating angles. He saw an opportunity in me. When the summons came from the royal Lycan Court king, Alaric Vane himself requesting that all anomalies be brought before the council for official evaluation and judgment, Torin practically salivated. The gleam in his ice-blue eyes was unmistakable. He could rid himself of me and gain favor with the crown. 2 problems solved with 1 convenient sacrifice. They came for me on a moonless night, when even the stars seemed to hide their faces. The journey to the capital was 3 days in a covered wagon. My chains bolted to the floor so I couldn't move more than a few inches in any direction. I barely ate the stale bread they threw at me, barely spoke, even when the guards mocked me through the wooden slats. But something was changing inside me, something I didn't understand and couldn't control. There was a pressure building beneath my ribs, like something massive was pressing against the inside of my bones, trying to claw its way out through my skin. It hurt, God. It hurt worse than the chains, worse than the years of starvation, worse than the loneliness. A crushing, relentless agony that made my teeth ache and my vision blur at the edges, made me bite my tongue until I tasted copper just to have a different pain to focus on. I bit down harder, trying to stay silent. If they knew something was happening, if they suspected the seal was weakening, they'd kill me before we ever reached the king. Torin would put a blade through my heart and call it mercy. When the wagon finally stopped and the doors opened, letting in blinding sunlight after 3 days of darkness, the scent hit me first, ancient stone. Power concentrated like lightning in a bottle, and something else. Something that made every cell in my body scream with recognition, with need. Mate. No, it couldn't be. The universe couldn't be that cruel. They dragged me out of the wagon in chains, and I kept my head down, my body trembling from exhaustion and that terrible pressure building inside me. I could smell him now, cedar and smoke and dominance so absolute it made my knees weak. The pressure inside me was a roaring thing now, desperate and furious, a caged beast that had finally caught the scent of freedom. I was kneeling before my fated mate, and somehow, I already knew he was about to destroy me. The royal court was designed to make you feel small, insignificant, utterly powerless. Vaulted ceilings soared overhead like the ribcage of some massive beast, carved with centuries of Lycan history, conquests etched in loving detail, coronations captured in stone, executions memorialized as warnings. Massive stone pillars lined the hall like ancient sentinels, each one thick enough that 3 men couldn't wrap their arms around it. Between them stood the elite of our kind, alphas in ceremonial armor polished to mirror brightness, their wolves barely contained beneath their skin, making the air shimmer with suppressed power. Betas with cold, assessing eyes that calculated your worth in seconds. Even a few omegas, though they stood in the shadows where they belonged, their submission to the hierarchy absolute and unquestioned. I was dragged down the center aisle, my chains scraping against polished marble that reflected torchlight like liquid gold. The sound echoed obscenely in the vast space. Every face turned toward me. Some looked curious, tilting their heads like I was an interesting specimen. Most looked disgusted, their lips curling, their wolves snarling at the wrongness of me. The guards forced me to my knees at the base of a raised dais, and the marble was cold enough to burn through the thin fabric of my sackcloth dress. My wrists ached where the chains pulled, the wolfsbane burns flaring with fresh agony, and that's when I saw him. King Alaric Vane. He sat on a throne of black iron and bone, the bones of enemies, it was said, wolves who'd challenged his rule and lost everything, and he looked like something carved from a nightmare given flesh, tall, impossibly tall, at least 6.5 feet, with shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of an entire kingdom on them without bending. His hair was dark as midnight, swept back from a face that could have been beautiful if it weren't so ruthlessly cold, sharp cheekbones that could cut glass, a jaw that looked like it had been hewn from granite by an angry god, and his eyes, God, his eyes, pure molten gold, the eyes of an apex predator, the eyes of something that had never known fear because it was fear itself. He wore black, all-black formal court attire that was more weapon than clothing, tailored to absolute perfection across his powerful frame. Every line spoke of violence barely restrained. Rings glinted on his long fingers, each one a sigil of conquered territories, each one a reminder of his power. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge, suffocating and absolute and completely overwhelming. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare. And then it hit me. The mate bond slammed into my chest like a battering ram. a golden thread that snapped taut between us. With such force, I nearly collapsed forward onto the marble. It burned. It sang. Every cell in my body screamed mine, 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 with a desperate, primal recognition that made my vision blur and my heart stutter. The bond was beautiful and terrible. A connection so deep it reached into my soul and wrapped around everything I was. This was my mate. My other half. The one person in all the world meant for me. No. This couldn't be happening. The universe couldn't be this deliberately cruel. Alaric rose from his throne, and the entire court fell silent. When he moved, it was with a predator's grace, controlled, lethal, each step deliberate and purposeful. He descended the dais, and I could track him by sound alone. The whisper of expensive fabric, the soft click of his boots on marble, the collective intake of breath from the court. He stopped a few feet away, looking down at me like I was an insect he was deciding whether to crush or simply ignore. I forced myself to meet his gaze, and the bond flared, white-hot and agonizing, demanding acknowledgement. He felt nothing. His golden eyes were empty of recognition, empty of everything except cold assessment. "State your name," he commanded, his voice a low, resonant rumble that vibrated through the stone floor and up through my bones. "Seren," I whispered. My voice sounded broken even to my own ears, hoarse from disuse. "Seren of Shadow Moon Pack," Alaric continued, his tone formal, detached, as if he were reading a particularly boring report. He lifted a scroll, and I recognized Alphatorin's seal pressed into the wax. "You stand accused before this court of crimes against our kind." Crimes. I'd committed no crimes except being born wrong, except existing when I shouldn't. "Wolfless," he read, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall, making sure everyone heard my shame. "Unable to shift. A genetic anomaly that threatens the purity of Lycan bloodlines. You have consumed resources, occupied space, and brought shame to your pack for 19 years. Each word was a lash. The bond between us pulsed with pain, my pain while he remained completely untouched, unmoved, unchanged. "The council has deliberated," Alaric said, and his golden eyes fixed on me with terrible finality. "And we have reached a verdict." The pressure inside me was unbearable now. A living thing clawing at my ribs, demanding release. The scars on my shoulders burned beneath my tattered clothes like brands. My mate was going to sentence me, and he didn't even know what I was, what he was about to unleash. I saw it happen. For one single crystalline moment, Alaric's golden eyes flickered, his nostrils flared, and his massive frame went rigid as stone. The mate bond, that golden thread between us, pulled taut, and I watched recognition flash across his face like lightning splitting a dark sky. He felt it. He knew. And then his expression twisted into something worse than hatred, something that made my stomach drop. Disgust. Pure, unadulterated revulsion. His lip curled, showing teeth, and he took a deliberate step backward, as if proximity to me was contamination, as if I carried some disease that might infect him if he stood too close. "No," he said, so quietly only I could hear. His voice was rough, strained, then louder, his voice cutting through the hall like a blade. "This cannot stand." The council members shifted in their seats, confused murmurs rippling through the assembled crowd. Alpha Selena leaned forward in her seat, her eyes gleaming with malicious curiosity, practically tasting drama. Alaric's jaw clenched, a muscle ticking beneath his skin. When he spoke again, his voice was iron. "The bond is false, corrupted. This creature is a blight upon our bloodline, and I will not." He paused, and the weight of his next words crushed the air from my lungs. "I reject this abomination." The world stopped. Reject. The bond between us didn't just break, it shattered. I felt it splinter inside my chest, each fracture a white-hot agony that tore through my soul like claws through flesh. The pain was beyond physical, beyond anything I'd ever experienced. It was spiritual death, the destruction of something sacred that was never supposed to be broken. Tears burned down my cheeks before I could stop them, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the agony. He wasn't just sentencing me. He was destroying the one sacred thing our kind believed in, the one thing that was supposed to be absolute and unbreakable. "You will be cast beyond the wall," Alaric continued, his voice devoid of mercy, empty of anything except cold finality. "Stripped of your name, your pack, your right to exist among Lycans. You will be marked as forsaken, and left to the rogues and demons that prowl the wasteland. If you survive the night, it will be more than you deserve. A death sentence. He was throwing me to the monsters that prowled beyond our territories, twisted, feral things that were more beast than wolf, that killed for sport and fed on fear. My fated mate wanted me dead. The pain was unbearable, not physical, but something deeper. Something that reached into the core of what I was and ripped. The betrayal, the rejection, the years of chains and darkness and silence, the loneliness, the starvation, the abuse, it all converged into a single, annihilating point of pure agony. And inside me, something screamed. Crack. The sound echoed inside my skull like breaking glass, like a mountain splitting in half. Heat flooded my body, searing, impossible heat that felt like my blood was boiling. The wolfsbane scars on my shoulders split open, bleeding not red but black, dark as ink, dark as the spaces between stars, ancient as death itself. I gasped, my back arching, and the chains around my wrists began to smoke. The iron glowed red, then white-hot. "What?" someone shouted from the crowd. The pressure that had been building inside me for 19 years exploded. My bones shifted, restructuring with sounds like branches snapping. My skin burned as silver fur erupted across every inch. And then, she came. The roar that tore from my throat wasn't human. It wasn't even a normal wolf's howl. It was the sound of something primordial, something that had been buried and bound and furious for far, far too long. The sound of divine rage made manifest. The chains shattered like brittle ice, fragments flying in every direction. The marble floor cracked beneath me, fissures spreading like spiderwebs. And when she rose, the entire royal court went silent. I was massive, easily twice the size of any alpha in the room, towering over them like a dire wolf of legend. My fur was pure silver, gleaming like molten starlight, like moonlight made solid. And my eyes, I could feel them burning, were not gold or amber like normal wolves. They were mercury, liquid, silver, and utterly merciless, ancient and terrible and beautiful. The Silver Wolf of Argentum legend. And she was awake. The court erupted into chaos, screams, shouts, the scrape of weapons being drawn, the sound of chairs toppling as people scrambled backward in terror. But all I could see was Alaric, my mate, my betrayer. I bared fangs as long as daggers and let loose another roar that shook dust from the ancient rafters, that cracked stone and shattered windows. "Run," it said. "Fear me," it promised. "Regret," it demanded. The court collapsed like dominoes in a windstorm. Alpha's warriors who had conquered territories and commanded armies, who'd never bowed to anyone, fell to their knees, heads bowed, necks exposed in submission so absolute it was primal. The overwhelming dominance radiating from my wolf was impossible to resist, a force of nature like gravity or thunder. Even the council members, those ancient seat holders who made and broke laws with a word, trembled before me like children. But one figure remained standing, Alaric. His golden eyes locked onto mine, mercury meeting gold, silver meeting sun, and I saw it flicker across his face. Not fear, not the terror painting every other face in the room. Recognition. "Argentum," he breathed, and the word hung in the air like a prayer and a curse, like a secret finally spoken after centuries of silence. The Silver Wolf. The bloodline that was supposed to be extinct, wiped out in the Great Purge 3 centuries ago, when the other bloodlines united in fear and jealousy. The wolves so powerful they could dominate even kings, bend reality with thought, level cities with rage. My lips pulled back in a snarl, saliva dripping from fangs that could tear through steel. Every instinct screamed at me to attack, to make him pay for every humiliation, every chain. Every moment he looked at me like I was nothing. Every second of that rejection still burning in my chest. But Alaric didn't flinch. He took a step forward. The court gasped a collective sound of horror. Alpha Selena's voice cut through the chaos, shrill with panic. "Your Majesty, retreat. She'll slaughter you, she'll kill us all." Alaric raised one hand, silencing her without looking away from me. His power rose to meet mine, not challenging, but matching. Not dominance, but recognition. King to queen, equal to equal, 2 forces meeting in the space between destruction and creation. "Seren," he said, and my name in his voice was different now. Not cold, not disgusted, not the clinical detachment of a judge passing sentence. Reverent. "You are Argentum." His voice carried through the hall, formal and binding. "The silver bloodline, thought lost to history, the last of the great queens. His jaw clenched, the only sign of his internal war. And you are, the words seemed to cost him something. You are my fated mate. I snarled, the sound rumbling through my massive chest like an earthquake. You rejected me. The thought was pure fury, pure betrayal. You called me an abomination. I was wrong. The words came out rough, forced through gritted teeth. Alaric Vane, the Lycan King who never apologized, who never admitted fault, who ruled with absolute certainty, was bending now. I didn't see what you were. I saw only what I expected to see. A failure. A mistake. His golden eyes blazed. But I see now. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. He moved closer, and my wolf tensed, ready to strike, ready to paint this marble floor with royal blood. But then he did something that shocked every soul in that room, something that made even the Silver Wolf pause. He knelt. Not in submission. A king didn't submit, couldn't submit without destroying what he was. But he lowered himself to one knee, his hand pressed to his chest over his heart, his golden eyes never leaving mine. By the code of mates, he declared, his voice ringing with ancient authority, with power that resonated through the stones themselves. I invoke my right. You are my fated queen, and I claim you under the sacred law that binds our kind. No. I wanted to roar my refusal, to tear this palace down stone by stone and bury him in the rubble. But the code of mates was absolute, older than kingdoms, older than crowns, older than written history. It was the one law even in Argentum couldn't break without breaking something fundamental in the universe itself. You will not be banished, Alaric continued, rising to his feet with fluid grace. You will not be chained. You will not be hidden or shamed or treated as anything less than what you are. He paused, something raw flickering in his eyes. You are mine to protect, mine to cherish, mine to. His voice roughened. Mine to answer to. And I will answer for what I've done. For every chain, every moment in darkness, every wound. I will answer for all of it. The silver wolf inside me raged against the words, against the cage of tradition and law, against the betrayal that still burned like acid. But beneath the fury, something else stirred. The mate bond, shattered as it was, still pulsed between us, broken but not dead, and it whispered a traitorous truth I didn't want to hear. He's yours too. He made a mistake, but he's trying to fix it. And he's the only one who ever will. The court watched in breathless silence as the king and the silver wolf stood, locked in a battle of wills. His claim hung in the air, waiting for my response, and the entire kingdom held its breath. I could kill him. Right now, right here. Tear him apart for what he'd done. Or I could let him try to make this right. Let him prove whether words meant anything, whether remorse could rebuild what cruelty had destroyed. My wolf growled low, a warning and a promise that vibrated through the floor. You have one chance, King. Just one. Don't waste it. Because if you betray me again, there won't be enough left of you to bury. I woke up in silk, and for a moment, I thought I was still dreaming. For 19 years, I'd known only cold stone and rough sackcloth that scratched skin raw. Now softness. The bed beneath me was massive, bigger than my entire cell had been, draped in deep midnight blue fabric that felt like water against my skin. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a city I'd only heard about in whispers, the capital, all gleaming spires and bustling streets far below, the royal citadel. I bolted upright, heart hammering against my ribs. My body was human again, clean for the first time in years, dressed in a simple white shift that someone had. Panic flooded through me like ice water. Someone had changed me, touched me while I was unconscious and vulnerable. Had they? You were covered in blood and chains. I spun toward the voice, already half reaching for a weapon I didn't have. Alaric stood in the doorway, still dressed in black, but his formal court attire was gone. Now he wore simpler clothing, a fitted shirt that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders, dark pants that somehow made him look more dangerous, not less, like he didn't need the trappings of kingship to project power. His golden eyes tracked my every movement with unnerving focus. No one touched you inappropriately, he said quickly, reading my panic with unsettling accuracy. The palace healers are all female, experienced professionals. I made certain of it, and I stood guard the entire time to ensure. He stopped, something flickering in his expression. To ensure you were safe. I didn't thank him. Couldn't. My throat felt raw. My body ached in ways I didn't understand, like I'd been hit by lightning and somehow survived, and the memory of his rejection was still a bleeding wound in my chest, still raw and oozing despite his pretty words in the throne room. Why am I here? My voice came out hoarse, damaged. You banished me, cast me beyond the wall to die. I was a fool. He stepped into the room and I tensed, ready to shift if I needed to. I didn't understand what you were, what you are. Argentum, I whispered, testing the word. It felt foreign and ancient on my tongue, like speaking a language I'd never learned but somehow understood. The silver bloodline. Alaric moved to the window, staring out at his kingdom with an expression I couldn't read. 3 centuries ago, your ancestors were the most powerful wolves in existence. They could bend reality with their minds, command armies with a thought, level entire cities with their rage. They could see the future, read minds, move objects without touching them. They were gods among Lycans. Then why did they die out? I pulled the blanket tighter around myself, suddenly cold despite the warm sunlight. His jaw tightened, muscles flexing. They were murdered, systematically hunted and executed during the Great Purge. The other bloodlines feared them, feared what they could do, feared that they'd become tyrants, feared losing power to creatures they couldn't control. So they formed an alliance, all the major packs working together for once, and they wiped them out. He turned to face me, and his golden eyes were haunted. Men, women, children, they killed them all, burned entire territories to ash. It's one of the darkest chapters in our history. Or so everyone thought, I said quietly. Someone hid you. His gaze was intense. Someone sealed you. The magic on those scars, I had our best healers examine them while you slept. It's ancient blood work, designed to suppress your wolf completely from birth. Someone went to extraordinary lengths to keep you hidden and alive. Someone who knew what you were and what would happen if the wrong people found out. Why? My hands trembled. Why go through all that just to let me rot in a dungeon? Because if the wrong people knew an Argentum survived, they would have killed you in your cradle. Alaric crossed the room, stopping a careful distance away, close enough to talk but far enough that I didn't feel cornered. There are still factions, cults, really, that hunt for any remnants of your kind. They believe Argentums are an existential threat that must be eliminated. If they'd known about you. He shook his head. Whoever sealed you probably saved your life, even if it meant condemning you to that cell. I didn't know whether to feel grateful or furious. Both, probably. Your power, Seren, it's not just strength or dominance. Alaric's voice dropped. Argentum wolves can tap into psychic energy, the very fabric of reality. They can manipulate matter, breach minds, see possibilities that haven't happened yet. Untrained, unstable, that power will consume you. The pressure I'd felt building inside me for years, it made horrifying sense now. Not a sickness, not a defect. Raw power with nowhere to go, building and building until it exploded. It will destroy you, Alaric continued, his voice grave. And then it will destroy everything within 100 miles, possibly the entire continent. The last time an untrained Argentum lost control, they created the dead wastes, that barren stretch of land where nothing grows and magic goes to die. I stared at him, horror crawling up my spine like spiders. You're saying I'm a weapon, a bomb waiting to explode. I'm saying you're a queen who doesn't know how to control her crown. He held my gaze, unflinching. I can train you, teach you to master what you are before it masters you, help you become what you were always meant to be. And if I refuse, then we all die. Simple, brutal, true. I looked down at my hands, these hands that had shattered chains like glass, that had made alphas kneel with a thought, hands that could apparently level cities if I lost control. The faces flashed through my mind. Alpha Tauren, Luna Morven, every guard who'd laughed while I starved, who'd placed bets on how long I'd survive, every healer who'd treated me like a lab experiment, drawing blood and taking notes while I screamed, every pack member who'd spat at me, called me cursed, said I should have been drowned at birth. I'll do it, I said quietly, but not for you, and not for your kingdom. Alaric's eyes narrowed. Then why? I met his gaze, letting him see the cold fury beneath my skin, the rage that had been building for 19 years. Because I want them to burn. 3 weeks of training, and I could move objects with my mind. Small things at first, a pebble lifted off the ground, hovering in midair. A candle flame bent to my will, dancing in patterns that defied physics. a cup of water suspended, droplets frozen in impossible spirals. But yesterday, I'd shattered a training dummy into splinters without touching it, turned solid wood into sawdust with pure thought and fury. The psychic energy that had once threatened to consume me was becoming something I could shape, could control, could wield. Alaric pushed me relentlessly. Dawn until dusk in the private training grounds behind the citadel, a walled courtyard where no one could see what we were doing. He taught me to channel the rage that came so easily, to transform the chaos into precision, to find the eye of the storm inside myself and operate from there, calm and deadly. And slowly, grudgingly, I was learning to shift without losing myself to the wolf's fury, learning to access the psychic power without it burning me from the inside out, learning to be what I was always meant to be. I was in the middle of levitating 3 stones in a perfect circle, concentrating on keeping them stable and rotating, when the commotion erupted from the main hall. Shouting, the clash of raised voices, and then, I demand an audience with the king. I dropped the stones. They hit the ground with dull thuds. That voice. I knew that voice, the way you know the sound of your own nightmares. Alpha Tauren. My legs moved before my brain caught up, carrying me through the citadel's corridors. I burst through the throne room doors to find Tauren standing before Alaric's throne, flanked by 2 of his largest betas. He looked exactly as I remembered, broad-shouldered, gray-streaked hair pulled back severely, eyes like chips of ice that assessed and judged and found everything wanting. The man who'd chained me in darkness for 12 years. The man who'd decided I was a disease. His gaze snapped to me, and his lip curled in disgust. There she is, the defect. Every muscle in my body tensed. The silver wolf inside me snarled, pressing against my skin, begging to be released so she could show him what a defect really looked like when she tore his throat out. You will address her as Lady Seren, Alaric said coldly from his throne, each word precisely enunciated. Or you will address no one. Tauren's face reddened, veins standing out in his neck. She is property of Shadow Moonpack, stolen from my custody without compensation. I demand her immediate return and reparations for... Denied. Alaric's voice was absolute. She is mine by pack law. She is no one's, I interrupted, my voice cutting through the hall like a blade. I stepped forward, and Tauren actually flinched. Good. I wanted him to be afraid. I am not property. Not yours. Not his. Not anyone's. Tauren recovered his composure, turning back to Alaric with forced confidence. Your Majesty, surely you understand the precedent this sets. If alphas cannot maintain authority over their own pack members, especially defective ones that pose a danger, I invoke trial by combat. The words left my mouth before I'd fully thought them through. But the moment they hung in the air, crystalline and final, I knew they were right. I knew this was the only way. The throne room went silent. Alaric leaned forward, his golden eyes intense. Seren, it's my right, I said, keeping my gaze locked on Tauren. Under Lycan law, any wolf can challenge another to settle a dispute. I challenge Alpha Tauren of Shadow Moon to single combat. I smiled, showing teeth, letting just a hint of silver flash in my eyes. To the death. Tauren's face went pale, then purple. You have no wolf. You can't issue a valid challenge. I have a wolf now. I let my eyes flash full mercury, let silver fur ripple across my skin in waves. Or have you forgotten what happened in the royal court? Should I demonstrate again? Terror flickered across his face, quickly masked, but not before I saw it. Beautiful, satisfying terror. The challenge is witnessed and accepted, Alaric declared, his voice ringing with authority. 3 days hence, at dawn, the Citadel Arena. He looked at me, and something like pride flickered in his golden eyes. Something almost like affection. Prepare yourself, Lady Seren. I bowed my head slightly, acknowledging him. When I looked back at Tauren, I let him see exactly what was waiting for him. Make your peace with whatever gods you pray to, Alpha, I said softly. You're going to need them. The arena was packed beyond capacity, wolves pressing against every available space. Every alpha, beta, and high-ranking wolf in the kingdom had come to watch. Some hoped to see me fail, to watch the defect put in her place. Others wanted to witness history, the return of an Argentum bloodline proving itself in combat. But all of them wanted blood. They wanted violence. They wanted a show. I stood in the center of the sand-covered fighting pit, dressed in simple leather fighting gear that allowed for movement. Across from me, Tauren rolled his massive shoulders, already half-shifted, his body rippling with barely contained power. His wolf pressed against his skin, turning his eyes amber, elongating his claws into curved weapons. "I'll make this quick, girl," he called out, loud enough for the crowd to hear, playing to them, "out of mercy for what you used to be." Used to be. The silver wolf inside me laughed, dark and promising. Alaric sat in the royal box, his golden eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin heat. He'd offered to cancel the trial this morning, to simply banish Torin and be done with it. But I'd refused. Some debts could only be paid in blood and submission. Some wounds needed to be answered with tooth and claw. "Begin!" the herald's voice rang out. Torin lunged immediately, fully shifted mid-leap, a massive gray wolf with yellow eyes and teeth like daggers. Fast, brutal, efficient. The kind of fighting style that had won him his position as alpha. I didn't move. At the last possible second, I released her. The transformation was instantaneous. Silver fur erupted across my skin. My bones restructured in a heartbeat, and I rose towering, magnificent, fury incarnate. Torin's wolf slammed into me, and it was like a puppy attacking a mountain, like a mouse challenging a dragon. I caught him by the throat with one massive paw and slammed him into the ground. The arena shook. Dust exploded upward in a choking cloud. Torin's wolf yelped, the sound pitiful and broken. I didn't give him time to recover. My jaws closed around his shoulder with crushing force, and I threw him across the arena. He hit the stone wall with a sickening crack that echoed through the space, then slid down to the sand, leaving a smear of blood. He tried to rise, tried to fight. His wolf was strong, experienced, a veteran of countless battles. I was on him in seconds, my paw pressing down on his ribs, pinning him to the ground. The pressure increased steadily, not enough to kill. Not yet, but enough to make every breath agony. Enough to make him understand exactly how powerless he was. Submit. The command radiated from me, primal and absolute. The command of a queen to a subject who dared raise his hand against her. Torin's wolf whimpered. He tried to struggle, tried to maintain his dominance and dignity, but I pressed harder. Bones creaked. He gasped for air that wouldn't come, and then he showed his throat. Complete, total, submission. I leaned down, my mercury eyes inches from his, letting him see his death looking back. When I spoke, my voice was the rumble of an ancient storm. "You are no longer Alpha. Shadow Moonpack is released from your authority. You are stripped of your rank, your territory, your power. You are nothing." I released him, and he collapsed like a puppet with cut strings, wheezing, broken, humiliated before everyone who'd once feared him. The crowd erupted, some cheering, others stunned into silence, all of them electrified by what they'd witnessed. But then something shifted in the air. Heat flooded through my body, sudden, overwhelming, wrong. My silver fur rippled, and a scent rolled off me in waves that had nothing to do with battle or sweat. Sweet, intoxicating, undeniable. The scent of a female in heat. The first alpha in the stands growled, his eyes flashing gold, his nostrils flaring. Then another. And another. Oh no. My first heat. The silver wolf's heat. Powerful and primal and magnified by the battle. By the adrenaline flooding my system. By the raw dominance I'd just displayed. Every unmated alpha in the arena could smell it. And they were losing control. Snarls erupted around the arena like wildfire. Wolves began pushing forward, climbing over seats, their eyes locked on me with singular focus, their wolves demanding, claiming, seeing only a fertile female and the biological imperative to breed. I stumbled back in my wolf form, suddenly vulnerable despite my size and power. Then Alaric was there. He vaulted over the royal box, railing in one fluid movement, and landed in the arena, his power exploding outward like a shockwave, like a bomb detonating. The other alphas froze, caught between their instinct and their king, caught between desire and survival. "Mine!" Alaric roared, and the sound shook the very stones of the citadel, cracked the arena walls, sent birds fleeing from their roosts for miles around. His golden eyes met mine, fierce, possessive, protective, the eyes of a mate defending what was his. The mate bond, shattered as it was, screamed with recognition and need. Alaric's roar still echoed through the arena as he stalked toward me, his power rolling off him in visible waves that made the air shimmer. The other alphas backed away, their wolves recognizing the superior predator, but their eyes still tracked me with feral hunger that made my skin crawl. I shifted back to human form, collapsing to my knees in the sand. The heat was agony, every nerve on fire, my skin hypersensitive to the point where even air felt like it was burning, my body screaming for relief that only one wolf could provide. My mate, Alaric, dropped to one knee, his large hands cupping my face with surprising gentleness. His golden eyes blazed, his wolf barely contained beneath his skin, pressing so close to the surface I could see it in the way his pupils elongated. "Seren," he growled, "I need your permission." Even consumed by instinct and heat, even when every cell was screaming at him to claim me, he was asking, not taking, not assuming rights he didn't have. "Please," I whispered, and I wasn't sure if I was begging him to help me or begging him not to stop, not to leave me burning. He lifted me effortlessly, cradling me against his chest as he carried me out of the arena. The crowd parted like water before a ship's prow, wolves scrambling to get out of the king's path. We moved through citadel halls in a blur. I barely registered the route, too focused on the heat consuming me, on his scent surrounding me, on the mate bond pulsing between us like a living thing. The doors to his chambers slammed shut. He set me on the massive bed, and his mouth was on mine before I could draw breath. The kiss was consuming, desperate. Years of denial and rejection burned away in the heat between us. His hands moved over my body, careful despite his urgency, memorizing every curve, every scar, every inch of skin. When he pulled back, his eyes were molten gold. "The bond," he said roughly. "If we complete this, there's no going back. You'll be mine. I'll be yours. Forever. No escaping. No changing your mind." "I know." My hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. "I want." The explosion shook the entire citadel. Alaric was off me instantly, positioned between me and the door, every muscle coiled to strike. Another explosion, closer. Windows shattered inward, raining glass across the floor in glittering waves. Screams echoed from below, the clash of metal on metal. Battle cries, the acrid smell of smoke and something worse, dark magic that made my skin crawl. "We're under attack," Alaric snarled, grabbing his sword from the wall. The door burst open. A guard stumbled in, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead, his armor dented. "Your Majesty, the cult, they've breached the walls. Anti-Argentum forces, at least 50 strong, maybe more." A blade erupted through his chest. He dropped, and behind him stood figures in black armor, wearing masks etched with ancient symbols of binding and death. More poured through the doorway like ants from a disturbed nest. "The Silver Wolf must die," the leader intoned, cold and mechanical. "The bloodline ends tonight." Alaric roared, his transformation erupting as he launched at the attackers. His wolf was massive, golden black, pure dominance and rage, a king defending his territory. I tried to shift, but the heat made my wolf unstable. The transformation flickered, half complete, leaving me vulnerable in the worst possible moment. One assassin broke through, rushing at me with a blade glowing sickly green. Wolfsbane. Enchanted wolfsbane that could kill even an Argentum. I threw up my hand, and psychic energy exploded from my palm. The assassin flew backward, smashing through the wall into the corridor beyond. But more kept coming, wave after wave. Alaric fought like a demon, tearing through enemies, but they were trained, coordinated. Too many. A blade sliced his shoulder, drawing blood. He stumbled. No, the rage that surged through me burned away the heat, burned away everything. They were trying to kill my mate. The Silver Wolf erupted fully, and this time, she was furious. My roar shattered the remaining windows and cracked the walls. The floor fractured beneath my paws as I launched into the fray, psychic energy and raw power combining into something devastating. I was a silver storm of death ripping through assassins like paper, but even as they fell, more flooded in. The entire citadel was under siege, and somewhere in the chaos below, a voice called out cold, ancient, filled with terrible purpose. "Bring me the Silver Wolf's head. The Argentum bloodline ends tonight." The battle raged through the citadel like wildfire. Alaric and I fought back to back, our wolves moving in perfect synchronization despite the fractured bond between us. He was power and precision, every strike calculated to maximum efficiency. I was chaos and fury, psychic energy crackling around me like lightning, bending reality to my will. We carved through the assassins, but they kept coming. The cult had planned this for months, maybe years. Every entrance was breached, every corridor filled with black-armored enemies who fought with the fervor of fanatics. "The throne room!" Alaric snarled, his golden wolf's voice rough in my mind through our partial bond. "They're trying to reach the throne room. If they seized the seat of power, they could claim the kingdom, destabilize everything, throw the realm into chaos." We ran. The halls were chaos guards fighting desperately against overwhelming numbers, civilians fleeing toward safe rooms, blood painting ancient stone in abstract patterns. My heart hammered as we burst through the massive doors into the throne room, and there he stood. The leader of the cult was tall, draped in black robes that seemed to absorb light itself, as if darkness clung to him. His mask was different from the others, made of bone, carved with symbols that hurt to look at directly, that made your eyes water and your mind rebel. Power radiated from him, old and twisted and wrong, like reality itself recoiled from his presence. "The Silver Wolf," he said, his voice echoing unnaturally, layered with magic. "And her broken king." 20 more assassins flooded in behind us, cutting off our escape, surrounding us in a ring of blades and dark magic. "Your bloodline was purged for a reason. Abomination," the leader continued, circling us slowly. "Your kind were tyrants, monsters who enslaved others with your minds. We will not allow you to breed more of your cursed spawn." "My kind were powerful," I snarled, my silver wolf voice reverberating through the chamber. "And you were afraid of losing control. This isn't about justice, it's about power. We were wise." He raised his hands, and the symbols on his mask began to glow with sickly light. Dark energy poured from him, not Lycan magic, but something older, something forbidden that made my wolf recoil instinctively. Blood magic. The energy lashed out like a whip, wrapping around Alaric before he could dodge. He roared, trying to break free, but the magic bound him, forcing him to his knees. His wolf flickered, struggling to maintain form against the unnatural power. "Alaric!" I lunged forward, but the assassins closed in, forcing me back, their blades forming a wall of death. "Your mate is weak," the cult leader hissed, "tainted by his connection to you. I will kill him slowly, then I will kill you, and the world will be safe from Argentum filth forever." The dark magic tightened like a noose. Alaric gasped, pain contorting his features. Blood dripped from his nose, his ears, his eyes. The magic was crushing him from the inside, destroying him cell by cell. "No," everything inside me screamed. The Silver Wolf raged, demanding release, demanding vengeance. The psychic energy I'd been learning to control surged through every cell in my body, building to impossible levels. But this time, I didn't fight it. I didn't try to contain it or shape it or make it safe or controlled. I embraced it. I opened myself to the power completely. Let it fill every atom of my being. Let it transform me into something more than wolf, more than flesh and blood. The power exploded outward, and the world went white. When my vision cleared, I was floating 3 feet off the ground, surrounded by a corona of pure silver light. My wolf form was massive, but also more psychic energy made manifest, reality itself bending around me like I was a black hole of power. This was what I truly was. Not just a silver wolf, not just an Argentum, a queen. "Impossible," the cult leader breathed, his confidence cracking. "You shouldn't be able to." I smiled, showing fangs wreathed in starlight. "You wanted the Argentum bloodline." My voice resonated with power, shaking dust from the rafters, cracking stone. "You wanted to face what your ancestors feared so much they committed genocide? Here I am." I moved. Not physically, I thought myself across the space, appearing in front of the cult leader in less than a heartbeat. His magic flared, trying to bind me like he'd bound Alaric, trying to crush me with the same dark power. It shattered against my psychic shield, like glass against diamond. His eyes widened behind the bone mask. "What?" I reached out, not with my paw, but with my mind, and I crushed the dark magic binding Alaric. It dissolved like smoke and wind, like shadows before dawn. Alaric gasped, collapsing forward onto his hands, free. The cult leader tried to run, tried to teleport away with his blood magic. I didn't let him. Psychic energy wrapped around him like chains of solid light, lifting him into the air, holding him suspended. The assassins attacked as one, a coordinated assault, but I threw up a barrier that sent them flying backward, their weapons shattering, their armor crumpling. "You were right about one thing," I said, my mercury eyes boring into the cult leader's soul, reading every twisted thought, every moment of hatred. My kind were powerful. Are powerful. But we were never the monsters you feared. We never enslaved anyone. We protected. We led. We served. I could feel his mind twisted, corroded by decades of hatred and fear, convinced utterly that he was saving the world from evil incarnate. He truly believed he was the hero of this story. You are, I said softly, sadly. The monster here. You always were. I didn't kill him with claws or teeth or psychic crushing. I simply unmade the dark magic that sustained him. The blood spells, the twisted rituals, the decades of forbidden power stolen from sacrificed victims. I stripped it all away with surgical precision, leaving him as he truly was beneath the power, an old, frail man who'd traded his humanity for strength he didn't deserve. He collapsed, unconscious before he hit the marble. The remaining assassins, seeing their leader fallen, their purpose shattered, fled in all directions. Those who couldn't escape threw down their weapons and surrendered, their fanaticism broken. The battle was over. I lowered myself to the ground, my psychic aura fading as I shifted back to human form. My legs gave out, exhaustion crashing over me like a tsunami. Alaric caught me before I could fall. Seren, he breathed, his arms wrapping around me, holding me like I was something precious. His golden eyes were bright with something that looked like awe, like reverence. You're incredible. He laughed, the sound rough but genuine. You're everything. I'm tired, I mumbled against his chest, suddenly aware that I was naked and covered in blood that wasn't all mine. He laughed again, pressing a kiss to my forehead. Come on, my queen. Let's finish what we started. No more interruptions, I promise. The bonding ceremony was private. Just us, in his chambers with the broken windows now covered with heavy drapes, the blood scrubbed away by servants who knew better than to ask questions. The bodies removed. This time, there were no interruptions, no attacks, no cult members bursting through doors, just us and the mate bond humming between us, waiting to be completed. Alaric's hands were gentle as he undressed me, his golden eyes never leaving mine. Every touch was reverent, careful, as if I might break or disappear if he moved too quickly. I don't deserve you, he said softly, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw. I rejected you, humiliated you, called you an abomination in front of the entire court. You did. I agreed, not sugarcoating it. The wounds were still there, would always be there in some form. I will spend the rest of my life making it right. His forehead pressed against mine. Every day, every moment, I will prove that I'm worthy of you. Then prove it now, I whispered. Complete the bond. When Alaric bit down on my neck, marking me as his mate, the bond snapped into place, whole, complete, golden. The shattered pieces fused together, stronger than before, reinforced by everything we'd been through. I felt his soul twine with mine, inseparable, two becoming one in the most fundamental way. And when I marked him in return, sinking my teeth into his shoulder, I felt everything he felt. His love, his regret, his absolute devotion, his determination to be better, to be worthy, mine, forever. The mating was fierce and tender, desperate and slow, everything I'd never dared to dream about in that dark cell. And when it was over, when we lay tangled together in silk sheets, I realized something profound. I wasn't broken. I'd never been broken. I'd just been waiting to become who I truly was. 6 weeks later, I stood before the entire Lycan kingdom in the grand hall, dressed in silver and midnight blue, colors that had become synonymous with my name. The gown was exquisite, flowing like water, embroidered with thread that caught the light like captured stars. The crown they placed on my head was platinum, set with moonstones that gleamed like captured starlight. It was ancient, pulled from the royal vaults, a crown that had once belonged to the last Argentum queen 3 centuries ago. They'd kept it all this time, either as trophy or in hope. Now it sat on my head where it belonged. Queen Seren Argentum Vane, the herald announced, his voice carrying through the packed hall. Silver Wolf, protector of the realm, mate to King Alaric. Long may she reign. Long may she reign, the crowd echoed. The hall was packed beyond capacity. Every alpha, every pack representative, every noble in the kingdom. Even Alpha Tauren knelt in the very back, broken and stripped of his title, reduced to a common wolf. Luna Morven stood beside him, her expensive gowns replaced with simple cloth, They'd lost everything when I stripped Torin of his rank. Good. And as one, they all dropped to one knee. Not in fear, not in forced submission, in respect, in awe, in recognition of what I was and what I represented. Alaric stood beside me, magnificent in his formal regalia, his hand finding mine. Our bond hummed with contentment, with completion, with a love that had been forged in fire and blood and came out stronger for it. "My queen," he murmured, just for me, his golden eyes warm. "My king," I replied, squeezing his hand. I looked out at the kneeling masses, at the kingdom that had once rejected me, called me defect, tried to kill me, and I felt the silver wolf inside me purr with deep satisfaction. They'd called me the Lycan King's mistake. They'd chained me, starved me, studied me like an animal. They'd tried to break me, but I was no mistake. I was no defect. I was their queen, and they would never, ever forget it. The silver wolf had returned, and she would never be caged again. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine, so do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.